I don't tend to use the word gamification. I think of all of that as good design, and I think that in 5 years that word won't even exist. I think that we will be just talking about great design, and some of it will have a game style, and some of it may not, and you just use it appropriately.
You have a slide about, 5 slides in where I say this is psychology, not gamification, and I talk about things like the game mechanics that get all the attention, and I say, you take the progress mechanic. I'm not so much interested in the progress mechanic. I'm interested in why it might or might not have worked in the first place, and that has to do with things like challenges and status and reputation and progress and all these other fundamental things that have been timeless for thousands of years, just as for human beings. And those are as it's been practiced. I tend to refer to it as incentives 2.0 because a lot of what I've seen is very focused on these extrinsic rewards and extrinsic motivations. And the types of games I'm interested in, or the types of systems I'm interested in, are ones that encourage that intrinsic motivation, that find, if you will, the game that was there all along, and they surface that.
I think that also people very much bring to this where they're coming from and where their experience is. So, Stephen, you say that this isn't gamification, it's, human behavior. And absolutely that's true, but it's actually, I look at it and I say, I see system design in all of it, because at my heart, I'm a system designer. I design social systems that are the beating heart of these systems. So that's part of what I see. And then, Leonard, you see it from your background. And the thing is, Stephen, to your point about incentives 2.0, yes, it is. The people that see it as that are coming out of loyalty. So the gamification industry is really a collision of game design and the loyalty area. And that it's not necessarily bad. Loyalty programs are great. I love my loyalty programs when they're...
The one thing I've liked about the term gamification, and gameful design fits this way as well, is that it brings the concept of game front and center. When I don't want to get into a terminology discussion here necessarily. It's more along the lines of where we're aiming for this. So in Stephen and Amy Jo's discussions, some of the idea of the game aspect is and I think this is right, is kind of buried inside a larger concept of motivational design, seductive design itself. And that's correct, because the power of games is that it can engage.
I think it totally depends on who your audience is. For some audiences, the word game is absolutely a turn-off, and it's really, really important to get rid of it. There are other audiences for whom the word, I think, is an opening.
More commonly defined, game means there's a system of rules, there are ways to play, you can break it or not. I tend to prefer a softer term like gameful or play-like, because a lot of what I talk about is really just making something playful, something pleasurable, something enjoyable, not so much a formal game. Because once you make it a formal game, then people are going to hack it, and there's going to be an end to it. There's all sorts of things that come along with that. I feel like that's a more recent distinction, because I'm reading is it Roger Collet's book, Man Playing Games, right now, and he seems to use the terms interchangeably. So I think it depends, but if we're talking about game as in a formally defined set of rules and outcomes, and it can be a winner outcome in a competitive setting or whatever it might be, then I'm less reluctant to use that term, and I prefer like play and playfulness and things of that nature.
For some audiences, you might solve that with a competitive leaderboard or contest. For other audiences, that would be a total turnoff, and you might do much more straightforward design, even if you're a game designer and you know how to do that. It all depends on what you're doing to solve the problem for the audience that you're targeting. And the extent to which that looks and feels like a game is really all about the context that you're working in. And so we have these tools, which is the thinking and elements of gaming that can help us be great designers. But you never put that first. You always solve the experience design problem. The key thing is use it effectively. All the basics of good design, knowing who your audience is, knowing how they feel about things, knowing how they think about things, knowing what they want, knowing how to meet their needs, knowing what your technical constraints are, knowing what your market dynamics are, knowing what your competitive analysis looks like. All of that goes into great design.
For those of you listening, the conference is Gamification 2013. And you can see the URL at the bottom of my picture there. It's uwaterloo.ca/gamification.